Upon orders from the High Prophet of Truth, the brute chieftain known as Tartarus infiltrated Delta Halo's control room. His goal was to activate the Halo Array, an act which would initiate the Great Journey. For the Covenant, this meant transcendence to divinity, the central focus of their religion. For humanity, however, the truth had already been revealed. The Halo Array was an unbelievably powerful weapon, and its activation would wipe out all sentient life in the galaxy. Following the brute chieftain to the control room, an elite who carried the title of Arbiter assisted human forces in stopping Tartarus. Not only did this act prevent death on an unprecedented scale, but it galvanized the bond between humanity and the elites, directing their collective forays at common foes, the prophets and the brutes. Though uneasy, this alliance ultimately prevented humanity's extinction and brought an end to the Covenant's campaign of brutality.
You must be silenced.
The Arbiter is a title which will long be remembered by humankind. But what is an Arbiter? The origin of this mantle remains unknown, but it is believed to have been an extension of Sangheili tradition, a tradition drenched in blood and draped in honor. When the elites joined the Covenant, the Arbiter became the guardian of the Great Journey, the protector of all things they held sacred. For hundreds of years, the Arbiters served the Covenant as legendary warriors, quelling any threat or opposition to the alien alliance with a thorough finality that was unmatched throughout history. They were the ones who forced the Hunters into submission, the ones who would bring death to billions in order to crush the Grunts' rebellion. The only thing which was guaranteed about this title was the certainty of self-sacrifice. Each Arbiter would die in the line of duty, just as the one before him, and just as the one who would follow after. This was the legend of the Arbiter.
What would you have your Arbiter do?
As the legend of the Arbiter grew, so did their unflinching loyalty to the prophets and the tenets the Covenant had been founded upon. They became the vanguard of the Great Journey, the protectors of all the Covenant. Then came an Arbiter known as Fal Chavami, an elite general who began to question the validity of their faith, even in the presence of the hierarchs. When his doubt was made publicly known, a prophet ordered the execution of his wife, demanding complete obedience. This mandate carried with it unexpected results, as Fal struck back at the prophet, single-handedly slaying hundreds of Covenant soldiers before falling to the sword himself. While his revolt against the hierarch's authority allowed them to twist the position of Arbiter into a mark of shame, its necessity would not falter. Hundreds of years later, a ruthless elite warlord by the name of Ripa Morami would come to claim the same title. Having shown devotion to the Covenant through his brutal suppression of heretical Grunt and Jackal uprisings, Ripa eventually met his match when he challenged his own clan leader. Traveling to the elite's fortress world of Decided Heart, he struck out at his own people, laying siege to his leader's citadel, only to fail and be captured. He was tried and sentenced to death, but this would not be his end. The Prophet of Regret sought out Ripa prior to his execution, pardoning him for a specific mission. He was to travel to the newly discovered world of Harvest, obliterate the human forces, and claim a Forerunner relic which lied below the planet's surface. These battles would ultimately lead Ripa to a shield world in an attempt to activate an ancient Forerunner fleet. Before this could be accomplished, he was slain when gloating over what would otherwise have been an easy kill. Though Ripa's failure would sting the Covenant, it would not be the last Arbiter they would wield against humanity. Another would come 20 years later, and his actions would shake the Covenant to its very core. After the destruction of Halo, the elite commander responsible for safeguarding the newly discovered installation was placed on trial. A human soldier known as the Master Chief had destroyed the installation, momentarily bringing the Covenant to its knees. The supreme commander of the Armada stationed at Halo was none other than Thel Vadami, a seasoned veteran and an accomplished warrior within the Covenant military. This colossal failure, however, would end his crusade against mankind.
I will continue my campaign against the humans.
No! You will not.
Under any other circumstance, he would have been executed immediately. But the prophets had recognized an even greater threat to their power than the humans. From a forerunner structure orbiting the world of Threshold, a splinter faction of elites had begun broadcasting their own propaganda.
The elites are blind, Arbiter. But I will make them see.
Like Fal before them, they believed that the Great Journey was a lie, and that the prophets were false. Though Thel was selected to assassinate the leader of these heretics, little did he know all that was at work. Weeks earlier, Truth had already eliminated the elite forces engaged on Earth, sending a fleet composed entirely of brutes to finish their efforts against the humans. Thel was sent to kill a key figure which might generate support once Truth's true motivations against the elites were revealed. While he did not know it at the time, Thel was also one of these potential antagonists, and his newly acquired mantle would now guarantee his own death. But as with many of the Prophet's machinations, the endgame would play out far differently than they had hoped. After learning the truth regarding the Prophets and the Halo Array, Thel forged a deal with the humans. A deal which culminated in the assassination of the last Prophet Hierarch, and ultimately, the end of the Covenant. The Arbiter stood with his once mortal enemy, the Master Chief, until the very end, ensuring that the threat of the Halo Array once again be laid dormant. And while the Master Chief would not return from this final mission, the Arbiter would.
You have my thanks for standing by him to the end.
Paying homage to Earth's fallen heroes, and eventually taking the remaining elites back to their homeworld.